Hi, this is Paul. I want to do a video about a story that really kind of got to me. I saw a promo for 2020. I like the news program. I like that, the ID Discovery, all the stories about murder and all that stuff. They kind of, have a penchant for watching those things. And I saw a promo, I think either Thursday or Wednesday for 2020. It was called Lock the Door Behind You. It was about the serial killer case that happened in Charlotte, North Carolina, about 25 years ago, where 10 young black women were raped and murdered in their homes. And it was a serial killer, obviously, that was doing it. They found out later it was a serial killer, what's his name? Henry Louis Wallace, who was the guy that, and he actually, usually with serial killers, it's usually they kill girls they don't know, the girls that they just see, and they decide to victimize them and stuff. But in this case, Henry Louis Wallace knew the victims that he actually murdered and raped and murdered. He actually knew them. Okay. And of course, there was a lot of backlash to the police because it took a while before they really even got to know that there was actually a serial killer operating. I think it was the third victim that her mother, she started actually, holding press conferences and stuff and making a big deal about saying that, that the cops are not really working as hard as they could be for her because she's just a young black girl. And let's face it, young, pretty blonde white women get more attention. That's just that's just the fact. And so she put pressure on them, and she even formed a group against mothers of victims and stuff. And she was holding daily press conferences and stuff and putting pressure on the cops to find out who was doing this. And of course, like I said, I think they called him the Taco Bell killer because he worked with a lot of them that worked in the fast food industry at the restaurant. He knew a lot of them. Okay. And if you think about it, in a way, you kind of understand why the victims' past were frustrated, because the people that were getting murdered, they had connections to each other. Like the first two victims, they knew each other. Okay, excuse me. The second and third victim knew each other. They actually worked in the same restaurant, and they knew each other. And the cops couldn't put it together that that this guy was I think they even interviewed him, but I think they just let it go after that. And the only way they caught him was because one of the victims, he tried to use their bank card. Okay, and of course, this victim, in her last dying breath, she gave him the wrong PIN number. So when he went to the ATM to try to use it, of course, it didn't work. And they had video of him, and they could tell he had an earring, he had a cross on it, and that's how they so that when they actually later when they went back and found out that this guy, look at this guy again, they said, oh, okay, he is wearing he's wearing an earring with a cross on it. And then that's how they kind of put it together. And plus they also found, I think, a fingerprint on one of the hatch of the car of one of the victims that he killed. They found his fingerprint, and he had a previous record before that. Now this guy was married before, and they did an interview with him. Like one of these profilers did an interview with him, and he was saying that that he was married before, and he was saying that basically that he thought about killing his wife, but he didn't. He got divorced from his wife, and he moved in. He said most of the women kind of reminded him of his wife. And the thing that just really got to me is this, how the cops couldn't put it together. I mean, most of these people that got killed, there was no sign of forced entry. So it had to be somebody that they knew. Okay. So it had to be somebody in their circle, somebody that they knew. Okay. And obviously he worked with them in this fast food restaurant, and how they couldn't put it together, the victims that worked in this Taco Bell, and how they couldn't put it together that this was the guy. Okay, to me it was just this careless police work. And I know they were saying they had interviewed the cops and stuff, and the cops were saying that they were overworked and overstaffed, that there was during the crack epidemic, that they were they only was like 6 detectives for like all these murders that was going on. But I don't see how you couldn't make that connection with the girls that knew they knew each other. They worked in this fast food restaurant together with this serial killer. He worked there as well. Okay, and how they couldn't put it together that this was the guy that was doing it, to me, is just beyond ridiculous, that they couldn't put it together that this was the guy that was doing it. Okay, and a lot of victims in that. And there was one particular victim that she had a young son, okay, and the young son was a victim actually as well, because this one lady, she had a young son. I think he was 10 months old at the time, and she was talking to her cousin on the phone, and she asked her cousin to come over and hang out, and he said, no, I'm going to do something else. But he heard in the background, talking to somebody, saying, go ahead, just make sure you lock the door. So he knew that somebody was there, somebody that she was actually comfortable with, that she told to lock the door. And he raped and killed her. And he actually, because the kid was crying, he actually put a ligature around the young 10-month-old kid. And by the time the cops got there, he was like barely breathing, but they managed to save him. And they showed him grown up and stuff and talking about his mother. And then he reunited with his second cousin, because his cousin, the cousin of the girl that killed, he felt guilty because she asked him to come over, and he didn't come over. And he always thought that maybe if I would have came over, the guy wouldn't have murdered her because I was there. And so, he felt, so he kind of stayed away from her son, because he felt guilty about it. And they showed them, reuniting, and he's saying, you don't have to feel guilty about anything, exactly. And you see it in his face, the guy. And all you got to do is go to Hulu and also abc.com, and you'll see it on 2020. It's the latest story. Again, it's called Lock the Door Behind You. Okay, so all you got to do is go to abc.com or hulu.com, because they stream it the next day on Hulu. And I don't know, just affected me, because all these girls were getting killed. The young black girl was getting killed. And let's face it, I know there's a joke that the late great the comedian, I forgot his name, who passed away, who said that, let's face it, young blonde white women, they get a lot of attention, and unfortunately minority women don't. And I think that was part of the reason. But plus I think they were overstaffed. They were overwhelmed, because like I said, there was only 6 detectives for all these murders in this case and stuff. But the fact that nobody could put it together, that these girls, they all worked in the fast food industry, and this guy worked with them, and it had to be obviously somebody that they knew, because there was never any sign of forced entry when they found these victims. So there obviously had to be somebody that these girls knew. So all you had to do was look at who they knew that was in common with them, where they worked, and who worked with them. And I think that would have been an easy thing to figure out. But that's my logic thinking of that. But I don't know. Like I said, maybe they were just overwhelmed with all the case. But still, to me, it seems like that could have been a case that they could have been easily have solved. It was just heartbreaking to see those pictures of this young black woman, murdered and raped and murdered and strangled and murdered, and they interviewed the guy. And I don't want to hear his BS excuses talking about there's 2 people inside me. There's one guy and I wanted to stop, but I couldn't stop spamming the BS. And he's still on death row all this time. Hopefully they'll put him to death pretty soon. I know he's been appealing it and everything else, but hopefully his appeals die. And this guy deserves to die. Okay, he actually killed 11 people. 10, I think they charged him with 10, but there was another woman that they think he murdered also in another city, but they couldn't prove it. So there's actually really 11 victims. I guess you count the kid. That's 10. That's 12 victims, because he survived. The young kid survived, and the other girl, they couldn't prove it that he killed her. But when they picked him up and finally picked him up and he basically wrote a confession. He wrote down all the names of all the women that he killed, and he wrote that lady's name, and because that lady had disappeared, and they couldn't actually prove that he killed her. But the other 10, it just breaks your heart that these girls. And again, it was I think the tenacity of the mother of the third victim. She started that group, and she was putting pressure on the cops to saying, listen, you got to solve this, solve this murder. These young girls are getting killed and nothing's happening. And I think they only really got alerted when 2 girls got discovered. He killed 2 girls in one night. Okay, and I think that really blew up the story. Okay, the other victims, I think that people thought they were just random murders and stuff. But when the 2 girls in the same housing complex got murdered, then they really got, the cops started really feeling the pressure. And then again, plus the mother of the third victim, she was, out there advocating for her daughter and stuff, and for other victims and stuff, until they finally, like I said, one of the girls, the car he took, they found his fingerprint on it and stuff. So they picked him up again. And like I said, they interviewed him before, but why they didn't think he was a suspect, just again, it boggles the mind that they couldn't put it together quicker that this guy was killing these girls. And like I said, it's very rare that you get a black serial killer. I don't think there's that many black serial killers. And this is also an unusual case because most serial killers, like I said, they pick random victims. They target somebody that they don't know, and they just kill them. They don't usually kill people they know for the most part. And this guy actually killed people that he knew. He was like, and the most chilling thing was the mother of the third victim. She said he hugged her at the memorial service for her. And then the one girl that was missing, that he actually led them to her body when it was just bone stuff. Her aunt was saying he came up to me and was hugging me, telling me it'll be okay. And it's just chilling that he could be that ice cold to do that. It just chilled me to the bones watching that just a story. And again, it's called Lock the Door Behind You. Okay, it came on 2020 last night, like 2 hours or an hour and a half, I guess, minus commercials and stuff if you watch it online. And it's on Hulu too. You can watch it on Hulu. The story just chilled me. And again, the guy's name was Henry. Well, it is because he's still alive, Henry Louis Wallace. And hopefully, like I said, he's on. Like I say, he's been on death row for like 25 years. I think they said. Well, 20 years or. Yeah, 25 years after his conviction. So I guess he's been on death row for like 25 years. And I know he's appealing his thing. And hopefully his appeals fail, and they actually put him to death. And I'm an advocate of an eye for an eye. And this guy, he terrorized that city for like 2 years, I think. He terrorized this city, that they were, not knowing who was this killer and stuff, and they thinking he was a ghost and stuff. And it just breaks your heart when you think about that story. And again, and cops have a hard job. I know that, and I'm not trying to cast aspersions, but I still think, again, this case could have been solved quicker. I definitely think that if you had more veteran cops or something, then they could have definitely saw the pattern that these young girls that were getting killed, they worked in the fast food industry, and the common friend they had was this guy. I don't see how they couldn't put that together. And again, they said they were overworked. They had, it was a bit of middle of the crack epidemic, and they were overwhelmed with all these murders and stuff. And I think the case didn't get as much attention as it should have. And I think, again, it could have been solved fast. And that's just my opinion about that. I really feel it could have been solved faster. And that's not to say those cops were deliberately doing, slacking off. I just think they were overwhelmed. And I also think that, just because it was young black girls, they didn't, there was no sense of urgency to it until, like I said, they found the two girls, and it kind of blew up, and the story blew up. And then they had to kind of put urgency, to try to solve this case. Anyway, let me know what you think of this case. If you, like I said, you can look it up online. Again, the guy's name is killer name is Henry Louis. Well, they call him the Taco Bell killer because, like I said, some of the victims worked with him in Taco Bell. Okay, so that's why they call him the Taco Bell killer, because again, and that was the connection. Most of these girls that he knew, and he knew them, and that's why, again, there was no forced entry. They let him in the house because they knew him and they thought of him as a friend, and then that's when he flipped on them and raped them and killed them. And so, it's one of those horrible things. This makes you just question, everything. Just, again, insane. Anyway, let me know what you think of this. Feel free to leave comments down below. I have links to my social media in the description box: Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Also have a link down to my main channel, Trepacer, in the description box. Check that out as well. Also have a link down below to my patron. I want to say a special thank you to my patron. His name will appear in this video somewhere. I want to say thank you to him supporting me and always having my back. And again, my patron's only $5 a month. Tons of content on there. Tons of unedited content on there. Everything from WandaVision to Loki to Hawkeye to What If to Moon Knight to Titans to Doom Patrol to Stargirl Season 1, Stargirl Season 2, Superman Lois Season 1, Season 2, The Flash Season 8, the Book of Boba Fett, the second season of The Mandalorian, all 4 parts of Zack Snyder's Justice League, all linked below to the Patreon, and check it out. Also, please give this video a thumbs up. It helps the channel, and I truly appreciate it. Please hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell so you know when I upload new content to the channel. And this is Paul saying so long and take care.